Anyways, like I said, my name is Matt, aka Genistry, and this is the Snyder Report Sports Podcast, where we cover anything and everything sports related. Uh, Today, we are going to talk about the college football playoffs round one predictions. We're also going to have our keys to the game, what I think it's going to take for each team to kind of come through victorious. We're going to talk about the NFL's Week 15 and the playoff picture, which is very clear for the AFC and not as clear for the NFC, but still pretty clear enough to where we can make a prediction. We did have some news in the basketball world, college basketball, where number one Tennessee took on Illinois in a very big thriller in my hometown, Champaign. So we'll talk about that. And then we're also going to talk about some of the games coming up this week, which makes out that top 25. And then we did have the PGA versus Live showdown between Scotty Scheffler and Rory versus Brooks Koepka and Bryson DeChambeau. Of course, PGA versus Live, a very big topic in the golf world. Still trying to figure out their merger. So this was showing some signs of what that could look like possibly in the future. But we're going to talk about it a little bit more in depth and talk about what it means for the future merger that is possible and what it means right now as far as where they are at with the PGA versus Live. But anyways, once again, I appreciate you guys getting through the technical difficulties with me, and I hope everything kind of works out from here on out. So the topics, we're going to have college football playoffs, round one predictions. So like I said, it's going to be my predictions on what I think is going to come out of this week. I think it's pretty straightforward. We probably all share the same predictions, but I'm going to give you why I think those predictions are probably true. The NFL Week 15 reactions. We had the playoff picture basically be completed with a couple of the wins and losses from this week, but the rookie of the year in the MVP race is tightening. Obviously, Josh Allen is having an amazing year, but we're going to talk about maybe some other candidates, and of course, Caleb Williams was thought to be, well, being the number one pick, being as much hype as he had, was thought to be the rookie of the year, especially from the first 6 games. I mean, he went 4-2, but and it switched between, Jaden Daniels obviously had a streak, Bo Nix has had a streak, even Brock Bowers has had quite a rookie year. But we're going to talk a little bit more in depth about that. And then we also have, like I said, the NCAA basketball. Number one Tennessee came through to Champaign-Urbana, my hometown, and gave us an upset. I mean, it felt like an upset at least. I feel like Illinois should have won that. And then, like I said, the PGA and Live Golf at the end. So let's talk about round one of the college football playoffs. Obviously, we have some pretty big games coming out of these round ones. Indiana versus Notre Dame. Notre Dame is favored to win by 7 points. That's going to be on December 20th, this Friday at 8 p.m. That's going to be on ABC and ESPN, 8 p.m. Eastern. That's the only game I gave in Eastern because they're in Indiana, which is on Eastern time. So my keys to the game for that obviously come down to Indiana, Notre Dame, both from Indiana. So that's going to be the battle for the state of Indiana in a way. Both teams are 11-1. Indiana's lost to Ohio State, obviously, at the end of the year, and Notre Dame lost to Northern Illinois in week 2 of their season. So a very big difference in their loss in their one-loss seasons. But Notre Dame does still have a 70.5% chance per ESPN to win this game. Also, coming into this, Indiana's head coach, Cignetti, has been chosen as the AP Coach of the Year. Obviously, that comes because of his turnaround of the program. Indiana has not been known to be a powerhouse, let alone a college football threat coming into this season. So now that they are getting a nod for the college football playoffs, even as a 10 seed and an 11-1 record, Cignetti getting the Coach of the Year was pretty big. Yeah, Coach of the Year, I know, but I don't know. I have my opinions on that. I personally think Cignetti is a great coach for this year. I think he's done a great job with Indiana. But Indiana didn't really play anybody, and that's what I'm going to talk about right now. Is Indiana's strength of schedule was the number 67th in the country. That means 66 other teams were deemed to have tougher schedules than Indiana, yet they're taking on they're part of the top 12 teams in the nation. That doesn't make much sense to me. I personally believe that if you're the best, you can beat the best. And Indiana only played one top 25 team this year, and they lost to them. Bad. They lost to Ohio State, 38 to like 15. So, in my opinion, does Indiana deserve a nod into the college football playoffs? Yeah, I don't mind it because they're so low. I wouldn't have liked it if they got anything like a 5 or a 6 seed or a home game, let alone. In a way, they got a home game. Obviously, Notre Dame is in South Bend and Indiana is in Bloomington. But once again, I have a personal problem with Indiana and Signetti getting Coach of the Year. They didn't play anybody. And when they did, they played one team that was top 25, and they lost. And they lost bad. Notre Dame, on the other hand, obviously losing to Northern Illinois was a big upset. I think they were like 14 to 21 point like favorites to win that game, and they ended up losing, I think, by like 3 points or something on a last second field goal. Notre Dame, on the other hand, has a strength of schedule of 60 in the country. They did lose to NIU in week 2, but other than that, they were 4-0 against top 25 teams this year. So they do have a big blemish on their record with their loss to NIU, because NIU, I don't even know if they made a bowl game this year. But obviously, that was in week 2, so they figured things out. Marcus Freeman, I love that coach. I personally think that would have been my coach of the year. I think his loss to Northern Illinois bumped him down. But going 4-0 against top 25 teams, other than just losing to Northern Illinois, Notre Dame didn't have a bad season or a bad thing at all. And them getting a 7 seed kind of sucks for them because they are obviously an independent team. They don't have a conference. They play whoever they want whenever they want. And obviously the top 4 teams, as we talked about in the college football playoffs, are conference champions. So Notre Dame never had a shot at a bye week, which is kind of weird because, like I said, they were 4-0 against top 25 teams. Their only loss was in week 2 against Northern Illinois. I mean, why not give them a nod? Once again, I think that could be something that I would like to see changed in the college football playoffs in the future, but that's neither here nor there. Keys to the game. For me, let's get into it. Let's talk about Indiana. Indiana's defense, they must stop the run. Notre Dame has an explosive defense, an explosive run game. They have no turnovers when running the ball. There's no fumbles. Big thing for them. They obviously are a very, very aggressive team. They're 10th in the nation when it comes to a rushing offense. They average 224.8 yards a game on the ground alone. So that's just running the ball. That has nothing to do with them. Can you guys still see me? Are we still good? It's lagging. Sorry if it's lagging. Weird. All right. Sorry. Hi, guys. I know. It's been in and out. I apologize. There's just been network issues. I think it's probably something to do with um, my building. I don't know. But hopefully they figure that out soon because it's been really annoying on my end. Anyways, Notre Dame's offense is the number 10 in rushing yards this season. They average 224 yards a game. Indiana has to be able to stop that run because Notre Dame's quarterback is pretty good, Riley Leonard, but he has thrown 5 interceptions this season, and he likes to throw it medium and deep because of that run game. That run game opens up lanes for them to just send receivers down the field for a play action deep pass. So that's something that Indiana is going to see a lot of this game, and they're going to have to run a lot of schemes to kind of counteract that. They're going to have to stack the box. They're going to have to figure out a way to play man-to-man and not get beat. Not sure if they can because obviously the same problem they had with Ohio State. Ohio State can run the ball. They can pass the ball. I would probably say their run game would hopefully be better than their passing game because Will Howard can be sketchy, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit. But Indiana is going to have to stack the box and play a lot of man-to-man because Notre Dame will run over them, and they have no remorse about that. So let's see here. Sorry if I keep looking off to the side. I'm checking on the stream on my phone. So, all right. Let's talk about Indiana's offense as well. We need to give Rourke time to throw. Their quarterback. They have an explosive offense. They're in second in the country for points for, so they score on average 43.3 points a game. If you're Indiana, I mean that's incredible. That's why Cignetti got Coach of the Year, was because your offense was scoring on average 43 points a game against Big Ten opponents. Now, were they the best Big Ten opponents? Were they even average? Not really, no, not this year. But you still get the nod. So they still score 43.3 points a game, and they're sixth best in the country for points against. They averaged 14.7 points a game against them, so opponents were not really scoring much. But the biggest thing, once again, just comes down to they had no real tests. And, they played one top 25 team with Ohio State, and that top 25 team scored 38 points. And that is way above their average of 14.7. So can Indiana's defense actually play against top-tier players and top-tier coaching? This year, I mean, they played, like I said, they played Ohio State, 38 points. I don't really know if they can keep up with that. And Notre Dame's defense is also no slouch. So can Rourke, who's had a stellar season, obviously was a part of that Heisman watch. I think he was like a semifinalist. Can Rourke get the time to throw the ball and make his reads? Because Indiana loves to throw the ball. They do have a great running back, but they love to throw the ball. They want the ball in Rourke's hands. So ultimately, we'll see kind of what game plan they have on offense, but we know their defensive strategy is going to be stacking the box, trying to stop that Notre Dame run game. For Notre Dame, they're going to need to get pressure to the quarterback. Obviously, I just said on the opposite end, Indiana needs to protect the quarterback, give him time to throw. For Notre Dame, it's the opposite. They need to pressure the quarterback. Rourke will throw the ball, and he's going to throw it a lot. He's taken 17 sacks this season. He's had 4 interceptions. So you're going to see a lot of Notre Dame probably running cover 2 or something like that to try and bait him in to throwing the ball. I may expect to see some pressure from like the cornerbacks, even some blitzing from the defensive backs to kind of throw him off his game. But they're going to try and force Indiana to run the ball and beat them on the run. Now, like I said, Indiana does have a good running back, but they are known to be a passing team first. So, and obviously with that, they have a lot of sacks. Rourke being sacked 17 times is pretty big even in college football where there's like lapses in judgment. 17 sacks on your quarterback is not a good thing. Notre Dame also is going to have to control the time of possession. They average having the ball 29 minutes and 48 seconds a game. Now, remember, there's not that much time in a college football game. They have 4 quarters of 15 minutes each. So for 30 minutes, half the game, basically half the game, they have the ball. But biggest thing is that Notre Dame's defense will be lights out, and they're running the ball will run the clock. So how do you counteract that? You can't have a ton of empty possessions when you're Indiana. You can't have a ton of these 3 and outs when you're Indiana, because when you do, you give the ball over to Notre Dame, who's going to run a lot and going to run out that clock. So I wouldn't be surprised if we only see like 2, maybe 3 possessions in the first quarter or even the second quarter when both teams are trying to figure each other out and feel out the game. We're going to have moments like that where it's going to be like, man, it feels like this possession has gone on forever. It's been like 8 minutes. It's been 10 minutes, and they run 16 plays. And that's how Notre Dame likes to play. They like to play that kind of game. Overall, my prediction for this game, even though everybody only predicts Notre Dame to win by 7, I'm predicting Notre Dame to win by 14 or more. I don't think Indiana has been tested this year. I know my guy Justin out there is an Indiana guy, but I'm sorry to say this, man. I know he knows football. Obviously, he's a coach out there, but listen, man, Indiana has not been tested this year, and when they did get tested with Ohio State, they let 38 points. Now, Ohio State and Notre Dame are 2 very different teams, but I don't see the outcome being any different. So I think Notre Dame, especially being at home, they're going to win by 14 or more points this game. Moving on to the next one, we have SMU versus Penn State, who are going to be the first game on Saturday, December 21st at 11 a.m. That one's going to be on TNT and the Max app, HBO Max app. Penn State has opened as the 8.5 favorite, so more than a touchdown. They think it's going to be a 2-possession win, or I should say 2-score win. That's kind of the prediction, and I don't disagree. Both teams, SMU and Penn State, are 11-2. SMU obviously being the 11 seed and Penn State being the 6 seed. Both of them lost one of their 2 losses for both teams they lost in their conference championship game. SMU lost to Clemson in the ACC championship game. Penn State lost to Oregon in the Big Ten championship game. So these teams have very, very, like, a lot of similarities in their scheduling and their outcomes of their season. But Penn State obviously is going to get the nod with the 6 seed to have the home game at Beaver Stadium in Pennsylvania. So, I mean, that's one of the hardest places to play in college football. Penn State is, like I said, open to be 8.5 favorites, and they are 67.1% chance to win per ESPN. This game, to me, seems pretty straightforward, even though they have similar records and everything. SMU losing to Clemson and almost getting blown out by Clemson, with making a comeback to make the game interesting, where Clemson had to make a last-second field goal to win that game. I mean, SMU just did not look the greatest in that game. Versus Penn State, who lost to Oregon, yes, but they played well. Like, Oregon led the whole game, but Penn State was right there. And Penn State's not normally known as, like, a team that's going to try and outscore you. They usually are a team that tries to score first and hold the lead. But that was a very different Penn State team against Oregon, and that's who they're going to kind of need to be in these college football playoffs if they want to have a shot. Penn State obviously had some great news. Drew Aller, their quarterback, their starting quarterback, their star quarterback, whatever you want to call him, he is coming back next season. He has confirmed that he has reached an NIL agreement, and he's going to be coming back for another year at Penn State. Biggest thing that comes from that, though, is the transfer portal has opened before the college football playoffs have started. So the Penn State backup, the second-string quarterback, their backup quarterback for Drew Aller, if Drew Aller gets hurt, He's no longer on the team. He has put his name in officially to the transfer portal. So now Penn State has Drew Aller, yes, but what if something happens to him? And I mean, remember, he's playing over the next month. He's playing, if they make it to the championship game, he'd be playing 3 or 4 games, pretty quickly against some of the best teams in the nation. So he's going to take some hits. It's not like you get an off week by playing like Chattanooga or something, and then you play Ohio State, and then you play a lower Northwestern team. Like, he's playing the best of the best, and they just lost their second string quarterback, their backup, to the transfer portal because the guy was like, I need to put my name in as soon as possible so that I can make the most money and get the best schools to look at me. So that's something that James Franklin, the head coach for Penn State, has voiced his complaints about, and I understand why. Now, who you thought would be with whatever scheme you come up with, even when you have a backup plan for saying, let's say, God forbid, Drew has an injury, takes him out for the playoffs. Now you don't have a backup quarterback that knows how the offense runs. Now you're going to have to look at your third string and say, hopefully you're ready to go in case something happens. SMU has the number 57 strength of schedule of the country. They are 2-1 versus top 25 teams this season. One of those losses, of course, being Clemson, who also made the college football playoffs here, and you can see in this visual. But number 57 in the country, strength of schedule, pretty middle ground. Once again, I'm seeing a lot of this, and I voiced my concern about strength of schedule in the last stream. So if you want to check that out, that's on YouTube. But on YouTube.com, Genistry is the channel, same as my Twitch here, and it is linked on my Twitch if you want to check that out. But I talked about strength of schedule needing to kind of be more of an emphasis in these college football playoffs and the seeding because, like I said, Indiana and Notre Dame didn't have strong schedules. Indiana was number 67, Notre Dame was number 60. We have SMU with number 57, but these are supposed to be the top teams in the nation, but they're not playing anybody. Now, Alabama had like a top 10, top 20 strength of schedule, and yes, they had 3 losses, but it's like, yeah, because they're playing Georgia, they're playing Texas, they're playing Tennessee. They're playing some of the best schedules. SMU gets to play some random-ass team. Notre Dame plays Northern Illinois. Like, okay, cool. Like, Northern Illinois hasn't been anything since Jake Lynch or whatever his name was the quarterback there. Indiana played one top 25 team and lost. So it's like, I don't know. I need to see more emphasis on strength of schedule. So I definitely get where Saban's coming out with that. SMU losing to Clemson in the ACC championship game was not a good look for them. They were getting blown out. Like I said, they came back, but they were getting blown out. Their quarterback, Jennings, he's kind of sketchy. He's either good or bad. So my keys to the game is Jennings needs to show up. He has to show up, and he can't have a bad game. He had a bad game against Clemson. They lost that game. He has a bad game against some of these lesser schools that they played. That's not a big deal. He has a bad game against Penn State. SMU's going home very early. And that's just how things go in the college football playoffs. Like, you need to be on your A game, and that's why we love these playoffs. But Jennings, good or bad, it can be here or there. He has 22 touchdowns on the season, so that's pretty good. And he has 5 rushing touchdowns to go along with that. So 27 total touchdowns for him this season. That's pretty good. That's pretty damn good. And he's a mobile quarterback, so that's really nice. But he has 8 interceptions this year. That's not as good. You don't want to see that. 8 interceptions, you got to take care of that ball. He had 3 touchdowns and an interception against Clemson, and he threw 50 times. And he had 304 yards. Once again, a lot of that came in the second half, though. SMU looked so bad in the first half, and even in the third quarter. They didn't show up until about the second half of the third quarter and the fourth quarter. So 304 yards and like 3 touchdowns, 1 interception is not bad. But when you put it in the grand scope of things, Clemson is by far the worst team in these college football playoffs, and you just lost to them. So how do you go to play at Penn State and hope to win when your quarterback is not playing his A game? You can't. That's the answer. So SMU, they need Jennings to show up. They need their quarterback to actually do something in this game. Also, Brashard Smith, their running back, he has to get involved. SMU has an amazing running back with Brashard Smith. He's at 1,270 yards this year, 14 rushing touchdowns, and he's averaging 5.4 yards per attempt against top 25 teams. So give this man the ball. I mean, on average, every 2 times he touches the ball, it's a first down. He's averaging 5.4 yards on the ground against top 25 teams per attempt. Give him the ball. I don't know why SMU is running away, and no pun intended, but they're running away from their run game. Like, I understand Jennings is everything you want him to be, and he's a decent quarterback when he's on his game, but how do you allow Jennings to kind of be more of the passer? How do you let him scramble more? Well, you create a run game so that the other team has to worry about that. You don't become a one-dimensional offense. If you become a one-dimensional offense, much like some of the teams that we've seen in here, it's very easy and very predictable of how the defense is going to play you. Now, the key to that is, yes, you know how the defense is going to play you, so maybe you can come up with something to combat that. But the bad thing is that they know how to play you, and they know what you're going to do, and therefore it's very predictable, and it makes it a lot harder of an offensive game if that happens. So SMU has an amazing running back in Brashard Smith. You got to get him involved. The man's got 1,200 yards on the ground. Give him the ball. All right. For Penn State, we have a similar thing here with Tyler Warren. Obviously, was like a Heisman semifinalist/finalist. He had 1,062 yards catching this year, 6 receiving touchdowns, 4 rushing touchdowns, and he even threw a passing touchdown this year. So Tyler Warren. Now, was he Heisman ready? No. I think he's probably the best tight end in the game right now as far as college football goes, even though I know like the Bowling Green guy is really good. But in my mind, Tyler Warren is the best tight end in college football right now. So you got to get that man involved. He's like a new Taysom Hill. That's the thing. Taysom Hill, obviously, if you guys watch NFL football from the Saints, Tyler Warren is like a younger Taysom Hill. He can throw the ball. He can run the ball. He's very athletic. Get that man the ball. Whatever you need to do to get the man the ball, whether it's running, passing, letting him throw the ball, let the man be a part of the offensive strategy. Another big thing from Penn State, they have home field advantage. We're talking about Beaver Stadium. We're talking about the University of Penn State. Penn State University's hometown, which I think is like called like University Fields or something like that. They have home field advantage, and SMU does not do well against pressure. Obviously, we saw that with Clemson, but this home field advantage is huge for Penn State, and that's why getting the number 6 seed or number 5 or 8 or 7 seeds were such a big deal when it came to these playoffs, because playing your first college football playoff game in your own stadium at home where you've won games before, I mean, that just plays such a big thing. So I'm guessing we're going to get a whiteout game for the Penn State versus SMU game. So that'll be really cool to see. Obviously, it's one of the liveliest stadium atmospheres ever. I would love to go to a game there. And like I said, SMU did not do well against pressure against Clemson. We saw them kind of crumble. And Penn State's defense is elite. They're 8th in points against, with only allowing 16.4 points to opponents. So, I mean, honestly, I don't really see SMU. SMU's going to have to play a really, really good game. Once again, Jennings can't sit there and like throw an interception or like take half a quarter off of just being like, oh yeah, we're going to go 3 and out. Like, Penn State obviously has the offensive prowess, as we saw against Oregon, to score a lot of points, and that's the last thing you want is a stellar offense and defense from Penn State if you're SMU. So overall, my prediction is Penn State is going to win this. I don't know if Penn State will cover the spread. I don't know if they're going to get to 8.5, but I think they are probably good to win by at least a touchdown. So that one's a little sketchier if you're looking to bet from for my opinion personally. For Clemson and Texas, let's talk about this game, okay? This was the game that everybody kind of chuckled at, including myself, because Clemson versus Texas. Texas is an 11.5 favorite. They are obviously playing at home. That game is on December 21st as well at 3 p.m. Also on TNT and HBO Max. Texas is 4-2 against top 25 teams this year. They lost to Georgia twice, who obviously won the SEC championship game against Texas. And Georgia is the number 2 seed in these college football playoffs. Clemson, on the other hand, gets in because they beat SMU in the ACC championship game. Other than that, they were 1-2 versus top 25 teams. Their only win against the top 25 was against SMU in that ACC championship game. They wouldn't have made it if they didn't win that game. So shout out to them for making it on the dot at number 12. Overall, Texas has the number 20 strength of schedule this season. They're an 80.4% chance of winning this per ESPN. Honestly, I don't think that that's a pretty low number. I would say it's more in the 90%. Personally, I think it's more like 90%. 90 to 95% that Texas is taking this home. I don't think Clemson has. They have Dabo Swinney, but I don't know if they have enough firepower in them to take on this Texas team. Texas has back-to-back playoff appearances. Clemson coming in at number 35 in strength of schedule. This is their first playoff appearance since 2020. Obviously, they have won a championship playoff seeding before with Deshaun Watson. All of us remember that. But this is a very different time, very different game for college football. So we'll see what Dabo has up his sleeve, but I don't know. Key to the game, Clemson, this is why I'm saying I'm predicting that this is probably the easiest one to bet on. Clemson is going to need a perfect game from everyone. Klubnik, their quarterback, is going to be back in his hometown. He grew up in Austin. He's from Austin, grew up there, went to school there. So him coming back home, hopefully that gives him a kick in the pants that he needs. He has 33 touchdowns this season, 5 interceptions with a 63.7% completion rate. He does have Dabo there to guide him, but who knows if that's going to be enough. They also need to make sure that when they have the ball, that they are keeping it and they are getting ahead quickly, because they're 12th in points for, meaning they score more than their opponents. They have 37.4 on average points a game, but they're 43rd in points against because they allow 22.3 to opponents. So, yes, they have a great offense, obviously headed by Klubnik, but their defense is not the most lights out, and they're playing an extremely good Texas offense. So, I don't know. Clemson also needs to win the turnover battle. Like I said, Klubnik only 5 interceptions on the game, on the season. But biggest thing is that Texas does not turn the ball over very much, except for Quinn Ewers. Obviously, we've seen that he's kind of gotten loose with the ball. This year especially, Quinn Ewers has been throwing insane throws, and you're just like, how is this guy supposedly supposed to be like the Heisman? He was supposed to be the Heisman this year. Obviously, Travis Hunter wins that, but which, shout out Travis Hunter. Honestly, the guy deserved the Heisman. I love Genty, don't get me wrong, but Travis Hunter was doing big numbers today, this season. So, yeah, I don't know. They're going to need to win that turnover battle. Ewers has been kind of sketchy with the ball at times, so hopefully they can take advantage of that. But they're going to need some help to win this game. Even if they play a perfect game, they're going to need some help. For Texas, really, it's the same. It's the opposite. They just need to play their game. Texas has everything going for them. Home field advantage. As far as like head-to-head matchups, like their receivers are faster and better. Their quarterback is supposedly better, but Klubnik's been having a decent year. Yeah, they just need to play their game. They're elite on both sides of the ball. They score 35.5 points a game, and they have the second best defense when you think about just scoring. They have a defense that only allows 12.5 points against. So, can Texas just play their own game and not get caught up in the playoffs? Yeah. I mean, they did really well against Georgia. They just kind of lost it towards the end there. It was a very competitive game in the SEC championship, but you just need to see more out of Texas, and you just want to see them play their game. And when they do, they're going to win. Biggest thing here, like I said, Clemson needs to win a turnover battle. This is where you can win those turnovers. Ewers has to protect the ball. Ewers has 9 interceptions this season and 22 sacks. So that's the thing. You are allowing your quarterback to get hit 22 times. That's not even just quarterback hits. That's just him getting sacked. So that's not including the times where he threw the ball away. That's not including the times where he had to do something, scramble or anything like that. We are strictly talking about 22 sacks. He got brought down 22 times behind the line of scrimmage, and he threw 9 interceptions this year. So you need to see more out of Ewers. If not, we could be getting an Arch Manning presence or appearance at the college football playoffs, because I don't think Sarkisian is just going to let Ewers throw the ball. He has an elite quarterback. He has an elite quarterback in Arch Manning on the bench. Like his secondary option for quarterback is literally probably a starter at every other school he goes to. So, I mean, once again, that just comes down to Ewers. If he wants not just a chance at the playoffs, but if he wants a chance at the next level, he's got to put on a hell of a performance. But his best thing he can do for his team, not turn the ball over. Overall, my prediction for this game, I think it's a blowout. I think Texas wins by 14 or more points. I just don't think Clemson wouldn't be in the playoffs if they didn't beat SMU, and SMU even then is a pretty weak team for the playoffs. Overall, I think Clemson doesn't belong in the playoffs, but they get the nod for winning and the automatic bid for winning the ACC. But I think going into Texas, I don't think they have enough. So, in my opinion, Texas is winning that by 14 or more points. All right. Let's talk about Tennessee and Ohio State. This is probably the most competitive game out of all 4 of these round 1 games. Obviously, Ohio State is going to be at home in Columbus. That is taking place on December 21st at 7 p.m. Central on ABC and ESPN. Tennessee is 3-1 versus top 25 teams. They have the number 28 strength of schedule, so they played a pretty decent year. Obviously, one of those wins was against Alabama, so that they're on a pretty big high of that. Ohio State was 2-1 against top 25 teams. They had the 29th strength of schedule. So pretty evenly matched when you put these guys head to head. But still, Ohio State with the home field advantage is favored to win per ESPN. They have a 65.5% chance of winning this game, and I don't disagree. Tennessee, biggest thing is they need to establish their run game, and they need to do it fast because they have an elite run game. They have the number 9 rushing yards per game in the country. They have Dylan Sampson, who has 1,485 yards on the season and 22 touchdowns himself. So, I mean, that's a lot. This guy is elite. Sampson is going to be a next-level running back. I hope to see him on Sundays because this guy, almost 1,500 on the ground in the SEC, 22 touchdowns. This guy's elite. Obviously, they have their freshman quarterback, Nico Iamaleava, I believe is how you say his name. The guy loves to scramble. He has 19 touchdowns, 5 interceptions this year, so kind of want to see that. Maybe it's like a 4-to-1 ratio, but you want to see that maybe a little bit higher. Biggest thing is Tennessee has given up 24 sacks. So we talked about Quinn Ewers taking a lot of sacks. Now we're talking about Tennessee giving up 24 sacks to their freshmen. Now, some of that comes from them just letting the pocket collapse. Some of that comes from him being a freshman trying to overextend a play that's dead. You just need to throw the ball away. You can't make freshman mistakes, especially when it's such a high-stakes game like playing Ohio State at Ohio State for a playoff spot. Win or go home, really. So those are some big things. Ohio State, kind of a fact here that you guys need to know. Ryan Day, their coach, is 0-3 against SEC teams. His latest loss was to Missouri in the Cotton Bowl, I think, last year. So 0-3 against SEC teams. Not looking good for him. When it comes down to it, you need to see more out of him. You need to see more from his coaching staff when it comes to these big pressure games. Obviously, the biggest pressure game for Ohio State normally is against Michigan in the game, which they lost again. I think Ryan Day's only won one game against Michigan. So, I mean, honestly, he's doing well in every other aspect, maybe, but Ohio State fans will not be pleased if he keeps losing against Michigan. Other than that, he's doing great. For Ohio State, they have an elite defense. They have the number one defense in points against. They only allow 10.9 points a game to opponents. And they have a decent offense that's pretty well balanced with Will Howard, and they have a decent running back as well. So they have 254.3 yards per game, and they rush about 169.2 yards a game. So pretty decently balanced. I mean, they're averaging close to 400 yards a game on the ground and passing in offense. So, I mean, we'll see what happens. But remember, Ohio State didn't play in their conference championship game, neither did Tennessee. So both of these guys are going to be coming into this weeks after their last game. Biggest thing for Ohio State is this is going to be their first game since losing to Michigan at the end of the year at Ohio State. So you better believe if Ohio State is not performing well to start this game, there's going to be some boo birds happening. Keys to the game, Tennessee needs to establish that run game. We talked about Dylan Sampson being elite. You got to get him the ball. You can't keep it out of his hands. I know Nico wants to put on a show. He probably, is thinking, I can do it all, put it on my back, I'll be the MVP, blah, blah, blah. That freshman naivety. But stick to your guns. Sampson has been elite this year. Nico, it opens up lanes for Nico, and it allows him to be a threat in the air, because if they have to worry about Sampson, we've talked about this with everyone else, if you have to worry about the run game, opens up deep passes, medium passes, and stuff. It just opens up the passing game. So establish a run game, establish it early. Nico also has to protect the ball. We've seen this a lot with the quarterbacks here in round one. I feel like it's something that all of these teams kind of share in round one is that their quarterback tends to just make those college mistakes, those rookie mistakes. And when you think about the gap between college and NFL and why it's so hard maybe for a Caleb Williams to transfer his skills to the NFL, or maybe why Jaden Daniels and Bo Nix are having a better year, and it's because at this level on college, you are playing a whole bunch of people that aren't going to make the NFL roster and are maybe not even third strings on the NFL roster. So seeing you struggle with turnovers against these kinds of teams. Now, I'm not saying quarterbacks are not able to throw interceptions or fumble the ball. That's going to happen. That naturally does happen, yes. But the amount of which it's happening is controllable. And once again, a lot of these quarterbacks, I mean, Ewers has 9 picks. Jennings has 8. Klubnik had only 5. I think Rourke had 4 or 5. Yeah, I mean, those are things. And Nico coming in with 5 interceptions but 24 sacks. These are things that the NFL teams will look at and say, I don't know if that's necessarily I love seeing that he's throwing 19 touchdowns, but why is he taking 24 sacks? Is it the offensive line that sucks, or is it that he's overextending and not knowing when to get rid of the ball? IQ is just as big as big playability. That's the thing. Remember that. It is very important that you have the ability to make big plays, but it's also very important to know when it's just time to cut your losses and throw the ball away, get a new play going, and try again. For Ohio State, on the opposite end, they need to pressure this quarterback. He is a freshman, so he's playing in his first postseason college experience is going to be at Ohio State. I do not envy this young man. Nico is going to have a hell of a time. So Ohio State has to take advantage of that. They need to pressure him, make him make mistakes. Will Howard has to be smart with the ball. Once again, 8 interceptions, 2 against Michigan in their last game. That's what cost them that game against Michigan, and what cost them a bye into the college football playoffs, maybe a 1-4 seed, especially if they beat Oregon. And all they had to do to get into their Big Ten championship game was it was going to be Ohio State versus Oregon. And all Ohio State had to do was beat Michigan. What they do, they lose. And they gave it up to Penn State. So they had their own fate in their hands, and they dropped it. Will Howard was a part of that. 2 interceptions against Michigan. I mean, that's got to feel heartbreaking. That's the last team you want to do. If you're an Ohio State person, the last thing you want to do is hand Michigan the game. And that's what he did. But 8 interceptions overall, still not a good look. My prediction, though, is Ohio State will actually win this by 10 or more points. I think there's going to be plenty of freshman mistakes being made here by Nico, and I think Will Howard is probably going to step up and have at least a decent game. So Ohio State by 10 or more is my prediction. Moving on, we have the NFL recap for Week 15. We had a Super Bowl Sunday matchup in the regular season with Josh Allen taking on the Detroit Lions. He has 5 passing touchdowns and 5 rushing touchdowns in the last 2 games. 36 total touchdowns this year, 25 passing, 11 rushing. Only 5 interceptions, which is his career low, and only 1 fumble, also a career low for him. So Josh Allen having an MVP year. He is averaging a 79.3 QBR, personal record for him as well. 64.4% completion rate, 8 yards per attempt. That's a personal record. And averaging 242.5 passing yards a game. So the guy is having a stellar season. And I know we talked about like Jared Goff was up there. We looked at a couple of other players, or at least there's been talks of a couple of other players that could be MVP. But right now, I think Josh Allen taking on the Rams, then taking on the Detroit Lions, and in the fashion that he's done, I think personally Josh Allen is ahead in the MVP race, and I don't know if it's necessarily close anymore. We also had a playoff matchup on Sunday Night Football with the Packers taking on the Seahawks. Packers did win, which almost guarantees them a wild card spot. Obviously, they're third in the NFC standings as they lost to both games in the regular season to the Lions, who are number 1 and already clinched their spot into the playoffs. And then the Vikings are in the second spot in the NFC North, and they have a win over the Packers as well. They do play the Packers. Packers-Vikings is scheduled for Week 17, so that could really be like what spot you get into, depending on how these teams' rest of their regular season plays out. But as of right now, the Packers are looking to make the playoffs. They have a 99.9% chance to make it per ESPN with that win at Seattle. Seattle is now on the outside looking in with the loss. They are battling with the Los Angeles Rams, and they meet the Rams actually in Week 18. Both teams, I think, are like 8-2 or something like that. They both are tied for second and first place in their NFC region. They do meet the Rams in Week 18. It could be a winner gets the final spot and a home game in the playoffs, depending on how each of these regular seasons plays out for the Seattle Seahawks and the Los Angeles Rams. A crazy stat for them is that in their record all time, the Rams versus the Seahawks, they're tied 27-27. So there's a lot of things building up to this Week 18 matchup with the Los Angeles Rams for Seattle, to where not only is there a playoff spot on the mix and maybe even a home game, but you could take the record. You could take the lead when it comes to head-to-head matchups against the Rams. So, pretty big deal there for them. In college basketball, we had number one Tennessee surviving in Champaign. They now have a 10-0 start to the season. It's their first one since 2000. There's only two other teams with 10-0 starts, and they're both in the SEC. Florida and Oklahoma are both 10-0, joining Tennessee as undefeated. Tennessee is starting 10-0. It's their best start since 1997, 1998, so before I was born. And their all-time record best is 11-0, which is where 99-2000, of course, that's Carmelo. And, of course, they went on later to win the that's Syracuse. 1999 and 2000, 11-0, that's their best record. So, obviously, there's a lot going on there. Other top 25 matchups, we have undefeated 10-0. Number 14 Oklahoma takes on Michigan, number 24. Not sure if they're going to remain unbeaten there. Michigan's a pretty tough team, but we'll see kind of what happens. Number 19 Cincinnati takes on number 22 Dayton. Not much kind of there, just a top 25 matchup. It'll be interesting to see what comes out of that. Number 16 Purdue takes on number 2 Auburn. Auburn is now looking to kind of be one of those favorites to win the NCAA this year. So even though Tennessee is 10-0, I still think Auburn is probably like better, but who knows? So those are some things going on in the college basketball world. Moving on, we do have the PGA versus Live Golf Showdown that happened last night on TNT and Max. This comes off of the PGA and the Live Golf CEOs. Both of them have been asked to step down. So Greg Norman and Jay Monahan have both been asked by the PGA and Live respectively to come down from their CEO posts. So the PGA and Live are both now looking for CEOs. The winner of this one, so there's a lot to this showdown, because the winner of this also won $10 million in cryptocurrency, and it was a Ryder Cup, President Cup style play. So like they broke it down into 3 sessions. There was 6 holes for each session, so obviously totaling to 18. The 1 through 6th hole was called 4-ball, and they were playing a best ball format. Holes 7 through 12, they played foursomes, which was just alternate shot. And then 13 through 18, they had singles where Rory took on Bryson and Scotty took on Koepka. Overall, the PGA ended up winning this 3 sessions to 0, so they clean swept Liv. Liv only won 3 holes. 2 of those holes were both in that single session towards the end. So Koepka and DeChambeau didn't look good at all, but it was their first golf tournament since September, since the end of the Live golf season. So maybe that played a part into it. But Live never led any of the games. They never led anything. It just kind of looked like a blowout, in all honesty. So tough there for Live. But what does this mean for golf in the future? Does this lean us more towards a PGA Live merger in the future? Actually, yes. This is something that we like to see if you're a golf fan, because Live is still trying to work on how much percentage they're going to take of the PGA, which is looking like maybe like a 6% stake into the PGA, which is equal to about the same amount that the Boston conglomerate or private equity firms that came in and invested in the PGA, all of like those CEOs that kind of binded together in Boston, that bought they bought about 6% of the PGA. So I think Live is looking to do something similar to that. Biggest thing is that they have to get the approval of the DOJ, obviously, because Live is from a foreign country being headed by the Saudi Arabians. So the DOJ has to approve of the deal, and I don't know if they will. But this could mean this was a good starting point, because this could mean we could see more of PGA versus Live in the future, more showdowns, maybe not even just like this style, but like an actual competitive match. This was much more of an exhibition match, but I think in the future we could be getting a PGA versus Live team to team, like Ryder Cup President style, like real showdown. I think that's still a couple of years out, but I mean, here's to hoping. So overall, this meant good things, but I mean, honestly, we're still in the same place with the PGA and Live mergers. All right, let's talk about what's next, chat. So January 8th is going to be the next episode. That's going to be episode 5. I told you guys this is the last episode of this year, because next week is Christmas and the week after that is New Year's. So episode 5, we're going to be covering more of the college football playoffs. We'll be reviewing some bowl games that have happened, looking at the semifinals and finals. We'll talk about the NFL playoffs and kind of what they're shaped like. By then, we should have probably the clearest picture. We'll talk a little bit about the NCAA basketball, if anything happened too crazy over the holidays. And then I will be gone on holiday. So, like I said, there will be no episodes going forward until next year. Other than that, I hope you guys have enjoyed the series so far. Like I said, I know we only started like 4 weeks ago, but I've been really enjoying making these slides, doing the research behind it. I really appreciate those of you that have reached out, or those of you that have shared it. Please feel free to engage with me more if there's something you want to see more of. I just really appreciate anything and everything you guys have done. So thank you so much. Once again, my Instagram here is mksnyder13. Just request to follow me. If you want to DM me on there, you're more than welcome to. Genistry on YouTube and Twitch. So if you want to watch this back, if you maybe are like, oh, I didn't catch that part, we obviously were having some technical difficulties today. But if you were having anything like that, or you want to go and watch some of the old episodes while you're waiting on the new ones to drop, go ahead and head over to YouTube. Make sure you hit subscribe, notifications, and everything on over there. Same thing here with Twitch. Make sure you hit the follow button, notifications, so you know when we go live. Make sure you join the Discord. There's anything and everything news there, so that's also another way you can interact with me. All of these links, of course, are located on my Twitch channel, which is down below. Just go ahead and click my like photograph or my name, or just look it up and you guys can find me there. But other than that, I hope you guys have enjoyed this so far. It's the end of the 2024 year for this Snyder podcast, but looking forward to a bigger and better Snyder 2025 report. Yeah, I appreciate you guys hanging out, and I hope you have the great rest of your day. I'll catch you guys later. See you.